we talking about Alabama and how Coach Saban and his staff has navigated the transfer portal this offseason. Guys, you got to look at the quality of guys that we got. We didn't just go out and get guys just because they was in the portal. We got guys because they could bring quality depth, something that we lacked in the past probably 3 years. Quality depth in key positions. And one key position was at the inside linebacker position, right there in the middle of the defense. We had guys that could do some things and not, do others. We haven't had a complete back. And Lawson, he's probably the most promising that we've seen on field in a lot of game time, with a lot of snaps. But we went right in the transfer portal and picked up Trezmen Marshall from the University of Georgia, and that's a big win for us. The guy showed us in the spring game that he's coming in playing physical and fast. He's used to the SEC. He's played quality snaps at Georgia. The guy has the stats to back it up for the amount of snaps that he's played. He's active, and he loves contact. So you put a guy like that next to Deontay Lawson, and then you add the guys. I don't know why I want to keep calling this guy Rashard, but the guy's speed is just unmatched at the linebacker position, and he's filling gaps as if he's a 230, 240-pound linebacker. So you talk about the pluses on that part, getting in key quality guys for that position. And then the secondary, I like the depth. I like the quality of competition that you're putting back there, because we have plenty of talent already there. A lot of unproven talent that need to fill in these positions, strong safety, free safety. We don't know where Malachi Moore is going to play. So bringing in guys like Amos and Key, I mean, it's quality depth that and you talking about giving Alabama a grade for the transfer portal. I give them an A, man, this offseason, just on paper. We can't talk about anything on field or what these guys are going to what they've done, but on paper, it looks good for us.
Yeah.
I know it might not kind of be in the wheelhouse of where you're going, but could you possibly give some grades on some of the guys who came in? Like, who were you most impressed with, and who were you least impressed with?
Most impressed, I'm going to say Trezmen Marshall. That's the most. I feel like that guy can start at any university in the SEC. He just so happened to be at Georgia and got behind in the sophomore year where he should have been the starter. And he suffered an injury that year. So I think it was his sophomore year, his redshirt sophomore year. So that was definitely the biggest grade. That's probably the A. That's probably the biggest win for us. And like I said, Amos and like you said, Amos and Key, they weren't needs, but quality depth. And then I think the lowest grade is just, we went out and got Buchner. I don't see what he brings to us other than his connection with Tommy Reese and possibly just, some sideline knowledge, but athletically, he's not more athletic than Ty. Maybe he has a better understanding of the offense other than that, or concepts and things of that nature. But other than that, he doesn't impress me, and he doesn't make me want to put Jalen Milroe on the bench or Ty Simpson on the bench, or even Eli Holston.
Yeah, so when you look at impact, right, and especially how they can affect the team, the way I always view this is there's questions and then there's answers. So when I'm thinking about what can Alabama be next year, I start thinking about the questions I have. And I think in a lot of ways, a lot of y'all pointed out a lot of the good answers the transfer portal guys present. We can start with Coach Smook. He talks about the inside linebacker, Trezmen Marshall. The question in that room is certainly not talent. The talent is there. It's exponential. I mean, you have Jahad Campbell, you have Murphy, you have Justin Jefferson, you have Kendrick, you have dogs in that room. You don't have experience. That's something Trezmen Marshall offers. Now, look, I'm not saying Trezmen Marshall has to be a linebackers coach, but we all know having that guy with experience in that room for the other guys to feed off of, that's going to help their development. It's one thing to sit in a lecture and be told something, right? That's easy. You can hear it and you can try and apply it. But until you actually go out there and try and do it, those words aren't going to be as impactful, which is why experience matters. Chris, you point out cover 2 is cover 2. That cover 2 he's seen, he's going to be able to hear what Coach Saban, what Coach Robinson wants him to do. And because he's had that experience, he can apply those lessons. I'm as big on Caleb Downs as I think anybody you will find. I think he is a superstar. He doesn't have the experience. He's going to have to learn on the fly, and I think it's going to be spectacular to watch. But, Chris, you pointed out the safety. I thought that was a great addition because there's no experience at the safety position right now. Talent is not the question. Experience is the question. Jaylen Key is an answer. And much like the linebacker argument, now you pair Jaylen Key next to Caleb Downs, which is going to increase his development, or at least in theory, could increase his development. So I love those additions out the transfer portal. I think Trey Amos was big. We all know what he did at Louisiana. He was a really solid player there. And he comes in after Alabama has a few guys enter the transfer portal themselves at that cornerback position. And let's get one thing honest, right? Like, I think when we start doing some theory crafting of this Alabama secondary, there's a lot to be exciting about, right? Earl Little Jr. has got the it factor. He does, right? Malachi Moore has the experience. Caleb Downs looks like that dude. And there are still guys that are going to evolve by the time fall gets around. But Trey Amos was still a necessary get. Buchner, I've talked about, right? I think this one is interesting because Tyler Buchner, to me, presents the same argument that I can make for Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson. Gentlemen, if we all turn on the South Carolina game, I can show you plays, I can show you reps where Tyler Buchner was doing incredible things. I mean, a pass rusher bearing down on him and he's side-arming a ball 35 yards down the field on a rope. The problem is 2 plays later, he makes a play and you're wondering, is that the same quarterback? It's almost the same thing we saw in the spring game. Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson for plays, for sequences. I mean, you look at them and you're like, man, if we get that the whole time, Bama's in good hands. It's the consistency. Yeah. That was the interesting thing with Ty Buchner to me is I think he's more of the status quo, a guy that could have a high ceiling, but the consistency is a question through a lot of interceptions with Notre Dame. And that's one thing, guys, that cannot happen for Alabama this year, not when they have so much new. The guy I think we need to really pay attention to, guys, the guy nobody mentioned, CJ Dippre, the transfer tight end from Maryland. We just get in Tommy Rees from Notre Dame. Notre Dame alternated between 12 personnel and 11 personnel and dunked on Clemson doing so. And I pray to God that they implement that at Alabama, because I think Amari Niblack with a CJ Dippre, with the running back room we have, could be spectacular. And I think when we look at the quarterbacks, all quarterbacks on roster fit the need that you would have to do that sort of offensive scheme. And Tommy Rees has done it, and it almost fits what Alabama wants to do. We know that tight end play is so important in modern college football. Just look at some of these top offenses. Look in the NFL. Danny Lewis, Eric, thank you. Thank you very much. A great point. Danny Lewis is a guy you hear a lot about. He's a guy that can block, has the ability to separate as a pass catcher. Great point there, Eric. If you have a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterback, check for Alabama. They have both. Great running back play and great tight end play can be that new offensive coordinator and new quarterback's best friend. I think Alabama has got great running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs isn't there, but I think Jace McClellan might be one of the most underrated running backs in the nation. Might be a little bit of a hot take because I'm an Alabama fan, but you never hear anybody giving him his flowers. And that guy is a legitimate, great threat at the running back position to do it all. That's a deep room outside of him. And I think Dippre gives you depth at that tight end, where Danny Lewis, Amari Niblack, they have talent, but it's the lack of experience once again. So I like what Alabama did in the transfer portal. Once again, I think when we look at this, there's questions and answers, and Alabama answered questions in the transfer portal.